You matter. The world is interesting. Let's learn something together. When was the last time you heard someone say that on a screen? That kind of sentiment, it feels rare now, sadly. I don't think kind media is naive or shallow or boring. Instead, it chooses curiosity, empathy, and hope over all else. It assumes that people can grow, learn, and care for one another. Think about Mr. Rogers. Yeah, he may be the most commonly cited example, but it is for good reason. Every episode began the same way. He walked through the door, changed his shoes, put on a sweater, and he spoke directly to you, not at you. He talked about feelings that adults often struggle to name, let alone explain to children. Anger, sadness, jealousy, fear, and he never told you that those feelings made you bad. He told you that they made you human. Mr. Rogers, he believed that kindness was not a personality trait, but rather it was a responsibility. Or Steve Irwin. Yes, Steve was loud, excited, and full of energy, but underneath that enthusiasm was a deep level of respect. He didn't dominate over nature, he admired it. He handled dangerous animals with care, and he taught millions of people that fear could be replaced with curiosity. He showed us that loving something, it sometimes means protecting it, even when it scares you. His kindness, it wasn't quiet, it was joyful. Or the man, the myth, the legend, Bob Ross. Bob Ross, he spoke like the world was never in a hurry. His voice was soft, his movements were gentle, and he didn't care if you messed up. In fact, he expected you to. Happy little accidents, he called them. Mistakes, they weren't failures. They were opportunities to create something new. Bob Ross, he didn't teach painting. He taught patience. He taught forgiveness. He taught self-acceptance. Another great example of kind media, of all places, is The Muppets. On its surface, it was a franchise of felt puppets and silly songs, but underneath, the Muppets are hiding a real sense of heart. Characters, they argue, they fail, and they make mistakes constantly, yet they're rarely ever punished for it. Except for Beaker, that man needs a break. Kermit, he gets overwhelmed. Miss Piggy is dramatic and insecure. Gonzo, he's strange and he doesn't fit in anywhere. But instead of mocking these traits, the show embraces them. The message is clear. You're allowed to be yourself, even if yourself is a little weird. Especially if you're a little weird. Those people have the most fun after all. Then there's Winnie the Pooh. Pooh, he isn't clever, he isn't fast or ambitious, he often forgets things and he gets distracted. But he does care deeply about Honey and his friends. In many modern stories, a character like Pooh, he would be treated like a joke, or even worse, a burden. But in The 100-Acre Wood, gentleness is strength. Everyone is allowed to be exactly who they are, whether they're anxious like Piglet, gloomy like Eeyore, or overly enthusiastic like Tigger. These stories tell us that worth, it's not earned through productivity or brilliance. Sometimes it is enough to just be yourself. Or Studio Ghibli films. They're another powerful example. Movies like Kiki's Delivery Service, Princess Mononoke, or my favorite, Porco Rosso, they move slowly. They linger on the quiet moments, on the wind in the trees, the food being prepared, or a character just sitting with their thoughts. Conflict, yes, it exists, but it's rarely about such defined concepts as good versus evil. Instead, it's about growing up, finding balance, and learning how to live alongside others. Hayao Miyazaki and the other wonderful animators, they trust the audience to sit with gentleness. And in doing so, they remind us that kindness is not weakness. It's essential. Kind media, it also shows up in places you may not expect, like the Mythbusters. On paper, it's a science show about explosions and testing myths, but at its heart, it's about curiosity. Adam, Jamie, and the team, they may disagree from time to time, but they respect evidence more than their ego. When they're wrong, they say so. Failure, it isn't shameful, but it's part of the process. Mythbusters models a world where changing your mind is a sign of integrity. Even shonen and shoujo anime, often associated with loud battles and power scaling, it holds similar values. Series like Naruto, My Hero Academia, or Sailor Moon, they emphasize friendship, perseverance, and believing in others. But the real victories, they come from understanding, forgiveness, and refusing to give up on people. Villains are given backstories, rivals, they become allies, And strength is tied to protecting others, not standing alone at the top. So what happened? Somewhere along the way, media companies discovered that anger spreads faster than kindness, that outrage gets more clicks, that entertainment is cheaper than education. We stopped leaving pauses for thought. Kind media, it doesn't perform well in an algorithm built on adrenaline. It doesn't demand your attention, but rather, it invites it calmly. Today, much of our media, it thrives on winning arguments instead of understanding perspectives. Even content aimed at children, it moves at a frantic pace, as if quiet moments are something to be feared. But kindness, it requires time. When kind media disappeared, something else disappeared with it. A shared emotional language, a way of teaching without preaching. But kindness, it hasn't vanished completely. It can come back, but only if we choose to slow down. Only if we remember that learning, healing, and growing, they were never meant to be hard. And maybe that's why kind media matters so much right now, when kindness can feel radical. Stories about our shared humanity, they're not escapist, they're restorative. They were made to comfort us, to slow us down, and soften us. When was the last time you watched something and felt like you had just gotten a warm hug from a loved one, where you didn't want to let go? Kind media, it doesn't tell us that the world is perfect. It tells us that the world and the people in it are worth caring about. And kindness is still something that we can choose every day. Thank you for making it to the end of this video, and leave a comment if you feel like I missed something, or dare to share what your favorite form of kind media is. Be it Wallace and Gromit, Blue's Clues, Bear in the Big Blue House, The Reading Rainbow, or anything like that. There's plenty of it out there, and if there are any good examples from the past 10 years, let me know. I'll add it to the watch list. Or drop a comment if you have an idea that you want my perspective on. We may just talk about it. Peace.